The following episode of Thoughts from Crystal Street contains spoilers. Continue at your own risk. Hi, I'm Graham.
And I'm Tana.
We are Crystal Street Comics, and this is Thoughts from Crystal Street, and we're back after 2 weeks of technical difficulty. And I'm saying that before I edit, so I really hope that I don't have technical difficulty with the new camera. But we got a new camera, and it looks prettier and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's new, which is always better.
New is better. So we thought we'd come back since we missed a couple of weeks, that we could talk at you for a while, and maybe you'll stick around. Everything's kind of wrapped up. The season of good television is done, and so we're going to kind of talk the comic book shows that were this season, and they were all really good. So why don't we go ahead and start with, I think, the one we, as a consensus, would say was the worst, and that's Arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And understand, we're saying we think that was the worst of the ones that were offered, but by no means, at least in my opinion, dude, I think Arrow was a bad show this season.
No, it's not bad. It's just in comparison to the other three that we will be talking about, I think it was the one that left more to be desired, or at least was more. There just wasn't as much there.
Yeah. And we've, as this season has progressed, we did talk a couple times about how we were a little bit bugged by the fact that this was a Batman story that just swapped out Green Arrow. And so it kind of felt lacking that way. And I mean, yeah, Deathstroke has never really been a Green Arrow villain. And, you know, the first season was, I guess, the one that felt the most Arrow-ish so far. But that being said, this was so blatantly a Batman story that I think it bugged us more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I liked all the characters. Like I like Ra's al Ghul, and I actually like what they did with him. I just didn't think we just never thought we didn't know why he was in an Arrow story.
Yeah.
I liked the story. It just always bugged me that it was there to begin with.
But out of it, I mean, like you said, and I think the other characters kind of stole the show this season. Whereas in the past, you know, it's been Oliver, and I mean, Deathstroke, you know, playing off of him the season before, and then of course in the first season it was all Oliver and Malcolm Merlyn. This time, I think it was a lot of the side characters really shine this year, because you had, I think, a really good story arc with Diggle, Thea, Roy. All of them got great arcs this season.
Yeah, and I was happy with what they did with Laurel. I actually do like now her progression into Black Canary. So yeah, I would say out of this entire season, what they did well was allow for Arrow in the future seasons to be a kind of the leader role of a team, as opposed to it being Arrow, mainly because Arrow doesn't have a whole lot. It doesn't have much to work with by himself.
Yeah.
Which is why generally the good Arrow stories are when he's part of the JLA, or the JSA. So, like, is he part of Justice Society?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that. And you're the DC guy.
Yeah. Either way, Green Arrow's the good stories that I know from him from the comic books have always been him as a member of a team. Because he doesn't have the rogues gallery, half of it that good heroes do. So being able to have now Thea, Roy, Diggle, and Black Canary, or Laurel, and possibly even, hopefully they keep using. Well, I guess Nisa went back to.
Nisa's back with the league.
Field too with the league, so. Who knows?
But, and of course, the other one we got out of it was Brandon Routh, who was so good this season as the Atom, which is leading into Legends of Tomorrow for next season, which looks great. So there was a lot to take away from this Arrow season that was very good, but the main story of Arrow maybe wasn't as strong as the other shows were, because the other shows had really tight stories that were inherently their stories. And so that, again, don't get us wrong, we liked this season of Arrow. It was just not the best offering that they've put forth.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did like the way, I mean, they did wrap it up well.
Yeah.
To the end of the season does kind of add credence to the entire season, how they kind of wrapped everything up.
And now Raish and the League feels more like the Arrow's version of the League.
Yeah.
Because now you've all, I guess I will have put spoiler alert at the beginning of this, so if you're still here, go to hell. You've now got Malcolm at the head of the League.
Yeah.
So it feels like even if they were to bring it back and to call him Ra's al Ghul again, we know that's Malcolm Merlin, and it'll feel different. So no, again, not a bad shot, Arrow, but it wasn't your best. That was season 2. So let's stick with the CW and let's talk Flash, which in a conversation I had with you just the other day, you had the hilarious realization that this was all one season. And there was so much done in the first season that it is just kind of mind blowing because this felt like it could have been 2 seasons worth of content we got in one season.
Yeah, it was. Like, I was actually a little surprised when he said the end of season 1. I was like, what? Seriously? This was just season 1? Because they went. I mean, I think even going from the beginning of the season, the pilot, to the mid-season break, that was just, there was enough story just in those 12 episodes, give or take, that most seasons are lucky to get that much content in their entire season, and Flash got it in 12. So yeah, it was surprising when I realized that this was just the first season, because everything they did with Harrison Wells was, he was one of the best villains on TV, hands down.
And Tom Cavanaugh, that was that was something special that he did on screen as a villain, because it is hard to be that likable of a villain consistently. And I mean, there was no bones about it. He was an evil dude, but you liked him.
Yeah.
And that was just exceptionally well done. And what I think I liked and appreciated the most about Flash is it hit the ground running, I guess no pun intended there, we're a superhero show. Our villains are going to have supervillain names. They may not use them, but we will use them. I don't know if any of them called them, I don't know if Weather Wizard ever called himself the Weather Wizard, but they were referred to as the Weather Wizard, at least by the team.
Yeah.
And I like that because I think, especially Arrow, I know shied away from it in the first season. It wasn't even calling himself Green Arrow or Arrow. It was the Vigilante. And so there's always been this kind of thing to kind of stay away from the core base names because they might be ridiculous. But Flash just said, you know what, we're going to do it. And then you just throw in all these elements of stuff that it's so comic book. The Trickster episode, that's comic book. Yep. I mean, that is, you couldn't pull that off on a serious, we're trying to be a serious movie. You couldn't do the Trickster, but they just said to hell with it. And then they did Gorilla Grodd, which is, I mean, that's a funky character.
Yeah.
And they just said, to hell with it. We're putting it on this show. We are going to be a comic book show.
Yeah, and I think they pretty much should be almost the kind of standard of, you're doing a comic book show. So I like DC's take for their movies, more realistic world, Batman Begins and that era. But also, you do have to understand that you are dealing with people that dress up in tights and have sometimes ridiculous powers. It's a comic book world, and I think Flash nailed it with understanding that you don't need so much the grit. And I actually did like that in one of the crossovers with Arrow and Flash, talking about this isn't Central City.
Yeah.
It's like this type of serious stuff is supposed to happen in Central City, where Arrow takes place, not on Coast City. This is where we get people that dress up and take names like Captain Cold and embrace his super villainness.
And since you brought it up first, let's take a moment to pause and applaud. Making Captain Cold a great character, not a good character.
Oh yeah,
a great character. Because this is if you've ever seen, and I'll throw some images here of Captain Cold from the comic books, he's a 1980s square glasses wearing Mr. Freeze knockoff.
Yeah.
and they made him badass. And I, again, shout out to Legends of Tomorrow. He's going to be on that show quite a bit, and that makes me happy because I really couldn't get enough of the character.
Yeah. Now here's what I'll pin, and again, this is where I came to the confusion that this was only season 1, because Flash alone. All right. Well, first, since we talked Arrow, Arrow's pretty much this season. Ra's al Ghul. There's your bad guy. With every now and then Malcolm Merlin was screwing things up.
Yeah.
Flash starts with clearly the Reverse Flash, but he's not a villain right at the beginning. Weather Wizard, Captain Cold's brother and sister, Gorilla Grodd. You had the whole story arc with Amel, the
Firestorm, and the military general played by Clancy Brown. I'm skipping on his name.
Yeah. Right. Let's see. What else did they fit in to just one season?
Yeah.
They dealt with the time travel aspect of the Speed Force. They loaded so much information into one season, and they did it almost seamlessly.
Yes.
Where it didn't seem like they were just piling on just more information. This did seem very much like a really good, just, we're going to take 23 episodes to give you a backstory on a character. And as opposed to, here's what it is, you get maybe 2 hours, and now here's your hero.
And that was a dick tease of a season finale.
Oh, yeah.
That's come on now. There's cliffhangers, and then there's running into a tornado for a cliffhanger for a whole season. Maybe next week on Flash you pull off running into the vortex of a gravity well, but making us wait a whole summer, that's cruel.
Yeah.
That's cruel, CW. That's very cruel of you, but that's, I mean, and again, what I like is, I think it took Arrow a long time for its kind of ensemble cast to really come together. Flash's ensemble cast worked almost right away with Cisco and Caitlin and Dr. Wells and Joe and Iris and poor Iris. Okay, Flash, as much as it is a comic book hero, he is the worst at keeping his secret identity ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I felt so bad that Iris was the only good guy that didn't know until the very end. I mean, when Eddie found out before her, I was just like, damn, that's kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, that was as close to really perfect TV as I've seen in a long time, in my opinion. I love The Flash. That was...
Yeah, I had a hard time. I mean, I have a hard time finding faults with this season so far. This is me trying to think. There is very small. There's a small amount of. See, this is normal though. A small amount of overacting.
Yeah.
But that's generally from. And mainly, I notice it predominantly with not so much Captain Cold, but his brother and sister.
Yeah. And I think it's actually his partner. I don't think Heatwave's actually his brother. I think it's his partner.
Right. But really, other than that, I mean, because they managed to take characters like Eddie, where he was. I mean, you never did not like Eddie throughout the show. He was just, you were just kind of waiting to see what they did with him because you knew that he was a Thawne.
Yeah.
You knew early on that he was the ancestor to the Reverse Flash, so you're just always kind of waiting to see if, you know, what they do with him.
Yeah. Was he going to become the Reverse Flash? Is that still on the possibility now that he got sucked into a time vortex? I mean, we still don't even know what's going on with Eddie at this point.
Well, I know Eddie kills himself.
Well, but then he's sucked into the vortex. So who knows how they're going to write that, because they've already said that Tom Cavanaugh is coming back for season 2. So is he just Wells now? Is he still Thawne? So who knows what they're going to do with it. But the Flash, in my opinion, again, just that's a way to start a show.
Yeah. Yeah. And the upside is Flash has characters. I mean, there is so much that you can delve into his universe that they probably won't be hard pressed to make their sophomore season any worse than this one. And I did really like, what was this? Not the series finale, but maybe an episode before when they mention the Air Force base that Green Lantern is from, Ferris Air Base, and they said it was closed down because the test pilot had an accident.
Had gone missing. So
yeah, so it's, I mean, they're doing great. I mean, both these shows, Arrow and W and Flash, are doing a good job just in creating the DC universe.
And so from the DC, we go to, speaking of sophomore seasons, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had itself its second season. And I'll tell you, I know that fans are kind of mixed on season one. If it was good, if it was bad. I thought season one was pretty good. Season two, by comparison, though, is hands down way better than season one. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes.
Yeah. It's like before this, he told me that I need to catch up on Shield because generally once I miss an episode, I just wait for the whole season to be done so I can just watch it all straight through. And I didn't think that's what I would do. I think before I stopped watching Shield this season, I had watched 4 episodes, and then I watched 19 in one day. It was a show where I started getting tired, and then I realized there's only 3 episodes left, and I could probably stay awake fairly easily throughout them. And it was just, they did such a good job with every single character that they had developed, and just the integration of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the actual Marvel Universe movies is phenomenal. It adds a lot of legitimacy to a television show when you are just referencing things that have happened. They'll bring up every now and then images of Sokovia.
Yeah.
And then they have characters, a few of them, every now and then.
Yeah, not many. And, hoping season 3, which is already confirmed, gets a little bit more crossover. Hell, I don't know what's going to happen in Thor Ragnarok, but that's 2 years off. So get Jamie Alexander as a series regular. If you're going to keep bringing her in once a season, screw it. Have her part of the team.
Right.
They ended setting up for they're going to make a powered S.H.I.E.L.D. team now. And they're going to be secretive, which, if you're a Marvel comic book fan, that kind of says Secret Avengers, which is what Agent Coulson, at least last I saw in the comics, was part of. So maybe they'll go that route next season. If that's the case, there's no reason not to get in Lady Sif, because I know the original Secret Avengers had Valkyrie as a member of the team. So Lady Sif is an easy substitute for that. So, but what I liked about season 2 was the character development, because almost every character from their season 1 arc took hard, radical turns. I mean, now Grant Ward took his turn mid-season 1.
Yeah.
But you keep going down this dark path from the guy who you thought was the Boy Scout when the show started. You had Fitz fighting, his mind, just trying to repair it the entire season. Simmons going from, this really friendly character to kind of dark and
manipulative.
May was still May. I guess Agent May was still just there kicking ass. But we got to hear why she's called the Cavalry, which was and that was a great episode. Skye becoming the powered agent now. It was great turns. And here's what I will say for S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe above the CW ones, where you say there's a lot of overacting. I don't get that as much in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah, no, I actually think everybody in S.H.I.E.L.D. right now, you could just transplant them into a 10 to 20 to 30 minute part of an Avengers movie, and I believe everybody that is doing their role would seamlessly fit in. I mean, you could have Robert Downey Jr. talking to Fitz and Simmons, and that would not seem bizarre at all. Everybody is doing their roles so well.
There's a level of production there that is just, you get the sense that Marvel's money is there. You can see what that does. the production just looks a little bit better. The acting is, in my opinion, just a little bit better quality. Um, Again, not taking anything away from the CW shows, but it's noticeable.
Yeah.
In the difference of the quality there. And it is one of those things, the way that season one ended made you want season two, but not all of season one just made you go, oh my God, I can't wait for the second season. It was those last couple episodes that made you want the second season of S.H.I.E.L.D. This whole season of S.H.I.E.L.D. makes me want season three.
Yeah.
Because now that I see that they can put a complete product on the table, I want more.
Yeah. And I would say this definitely, well, S.H.I.E.L.D. first season and this season, and in congruence with the WB, S.H.I.E.L.D., especially this season, had an overarching, you could tell that the writers was like, yep, this is where we need to end. This is how it begins. And here are all of the things. It's a complete story where you never felt like you had one episode out of the entire season that it was, we're not sure how to get from here to here.
Right.
It was with Coulson's reveal that there's the real S.H.I.E.L.D. and there's Coulson's S.H.I.E.L.D. You had an understanding. The writers knew exactly how they had to play everything out, and just made it riveting television.
And didn't miss a beat with the Avengers tie-in. And that whole beat led into it, because you had that weird sense when they killed S.H.I.E.L.D. in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. You got to have a feeling that maybe the TV show wasn't quite ready for that, and so they kind of had to respond to it a little bit. Whereas this one felt like they were ready to take the body blow.
Yeah.
And in fact, added a lot to Avengers: Age of Ultron, because now you don't got to wonder where Nick Fury got the damn helicarrier from.
Yeah.
You know where he got the helicarrier from. You just have to watch the TV show.
Yeah. And then one of the things that I was most impressed with in the entire season was, forget what episode number it was, but it was one where Skye and her team have to infiltrate the S.H.I.E.L.D. base to get the other Inhumans. They captured Deathlock and the infamous guy. But when she gets into the room where the other Inhuman is held, it is some of the best choreographed fighting with a pistol I have seen since John Wick. And John Wick was probably the best movie I've ever seen to date on how you're supposed to close combat fight somebody if you have a gun.
Yeah.
Because she's taking people to the ground and then just shooting them in the head. It is such a badass scene.
She actually had two really good fight scenes this season, because she also had the one where she fought the multiple chick.
Yeah.
And that felt like a Daredevil fight.
Where just getting beaten up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much S.H.I.E.L.D. is they're not doing anything wrong at all, and I'm hoping that season 3 is, if it's 80% what season 2 was, I will be more than happy.
Yeah, because let's see, you got to figure Captain Civil War, it's in the middle of their season next year, so. I mean, they've already kind of started to set up these divide lines of who's for powers and who's against powers. I think that'll play fairly well when Captain America comes rolling around for that mid-season break. And again, kind of, at least we mentioned it in this last bit. We're going to talk, because we can't remember if we've done a full review. We're going to go ahead and talk about Daredevil. Now, Daredevil obviously came out on Netflix back at the beginning of April. And so many of you have hopefully binged watched it. And if you haven't, what the fuck is wrong with you? If you have Netflix and you haven't watched Daredevil, you're not using your account the way it's supposed to be used.
I'm assuming the only people that haven't watched Netflix now are the people that thought Hulu would be a better streaming provider, so they just say, I can only afford one.
Right.
Let's get Hulu.
Yeah.
So enjoy your Seinfeld. Yeah. But Netflix has better shit.
So Daredevil. Again, this is an example of where you see Disney's money coming into play. For all of those who went, oh, Disney's taking over Marvel, this is going to be terrible. No. All that Disney did was say, okay, go make your stuff. Here's your money. We just want more money back.
Yeah.
And you are going to give us that money back. We already know that. So just here, go make it. So Jesus Christ, Daredevil was a great show.
Yeah, and it starts out. It's another show that just doesn't have any downtime.
No.
I mean, it's
And I mean, it does have the added advantage of it. It's a Netflix show, so it's only 13 seasons or 13 episodes for a season.
Yeah.
So it was able to condense its story, but I mean, it is a singular story. It may as well have been damn near a 13-hour movie.
Right.
Because it was everything. You had to watch everything for it to all play together. And the acting was so good. Every character, Stick, was so fantastic. Foggy, I mean, Daredevil himself, and Wilson Fisk. I when they announced D'Onofrio, first of all, I had to remember who D'Onofrio was, and I remember that's Edgar from Men in Black. uh, but I when I realized who it was, I was like, oh crap, wow, that's a huge change, because that doesn't look much like Vincent D'Onofrio to me anymore.
Yeah.
And the way that he kind of played a socially awkward Wilson Fisk was so just amazingly done. It's something I didn't expect from the character, and I was wondering if we were ever going to get some Wilson Fisk, and the answer is yes. You get a lot of it later on, but the build up to it is so worth it. That I think that he was one of my biggest surprises of the show.
Yeah, and it's another just the Wilson Fisk character. They did a good job. It's like you know he's the villain, but they did a really good job portraying him as he isn't the villain in his eyes.
Yeah.
So he's still a very likable. He's not even evil.
Yeah.
He's just his methods aren't in sync with what the actual show's heroes' methods are. Because he and Daredevil were essentially trying to do the same thing, just in two completely different ways. I mean, he's kind of yeah. And then he's played so well, and then with his backstory, the whole episode showing his backstory, you actually get some empathy to the character, where he's not just a mindless,
I'm gonna take over the city. Bad guy.
Right. Yeah. He's just he only knows how he can take care of things his way, and trying to do that. That's just like we're like what, second, third episode, maybe his second date with then who becomes his wife. Saying it's like, yeah, I've hurt people and I'm going to hurt more.
Yeah.
It's like he knows what he needs to do. So I mean, he's an incredibly motivated character.
Yeah.
That gets shown really well. And I do like it when the villains get. I don't want them to get more screen time, because then you start running into the Joker from the first Batman movie.
Yeah.
But I do like story with the villain, so they're not just, well, he's clearly the bad guy because he's written as the bad guy.
Right.
And he's, the good guy doesn't agree with him. You actually get an understanding on why he's the way he is.
Right.
And D'Onofrio nails it.
And then there's the fighting.
This is some of the best fight choreography there is.
And what I liked is almost every fight felt so unique. Like, it didn't feel canned at all, which sometimes the fighting on Arrow can feel that way.
Yeah.
You look at it and you say, oh, they're kind of going through that same routine that you've seen a couple times. The fights in Daredevil all felt so unique. And the one that always sticks to me is episode 2. The just one single shot in the hallway. It's very clearly an homage to the Old Boy fight. It's brutal. It's heavy. Everything is just, I mean, he's taking the punches and then he just kind of staggers back up and gives another one. It's visceral. It was very visceral. There's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Visceral fighting. And then you go to like when Wilson Fisk is just beating the tar out of Daredevil, not in the last fight, but the one in the warehouse. That's how a Wilson Fisk beating had always read in the comic books to me. And it translated to the screen so well. But in that same episode, you had him fighting the ninja guy, which was an entirely different fight. and different style of choreography. So that and I'll let you talk about your favorite fight because I know it's the one you like to break down, and that's the stick fight.
Oh yes, like leading up to it, Stick takes care of Daredevil fairly. I mean, it's a good their first fight. Matt loses. The tail end of it, that is such a well done fight with clearly the two people that don't need sight to kick your ass. So yeah, that was my favorite fight in the show, just because it is one of the fights where you're getting two people that are so evenly matched. Um, and it's just choreographed perfectly, and it's choreographed to the point where yeah, this is movie budget, because it does not seem it's choreographed, but it's still a very visceral fight scene where it doesn't look like yeah he kicked and you dunked under it.
Yeah,
it was you could you could tell that in these fights, even when Matt manages to block something, he gets bruises. I mean, it wasn't a it was definitely not a kung fu movie type of choreography.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the Stick and Daredevil fight just in his apartment, just how much they break. And I like how Stick gets up at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is so much in this show that was done perfectly. That and then also I'm really glad just how they kept mentioning the fight in New York from the first Avengers. They're tying in, and they tie in really well.
And they're, I mean, and I think going to something we had mentioned earlier, because Daredevil's already picked up for a second season, which that was kind of up in the air if they were going to do, because there's now then the Jessica Jones, and then Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and the Defenders. So there was already this plan for these 4 or 5 shows to come out. But it was curious. What we didn't know is if they were going to get second seasons of their own individual shows, or if it would be here's the 4 shows and then here's the Defenders. Well, Daredevil is confirmed for a second season, and Daredevil is a character that has a lot of story.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so, and he's got great stories that they can dive into, and there's so many of the other Marvel characters that they can tap into. One of the things I'm hoping and praying, and I know I won't get it because I doubt he'll ever get a chance to play it again, but if Thomas Jane ever shows up on the show as the Punisher, it's not going to be out of place.
Right.
Because that's where he works, and Daredevil has defended him before in court. So there is so much to do with all these Marvel characters. And of course, the one, if you didn't know what they were talking about, mentioned in the show, and that was mentioning his Greek girlfriend from college, which is Elektra. I mean, there's one of Marvel's most popular characters that they can just tap into right there.
Yeah.
So there is so much potential with Daredevil as a show. Like the other characters that are getting their own Marvel shows, I don't know how much depth there is because I don't know the characters well, and I know I'm the Marvel guy, but Luke Cage and Iron Fist getting their own shows is kind of weird. I think hopefully they'll get an independent season and they'll both just come together and start doing Heroes for Hire, because as a group, those two play off each other better. But like Jessica Jones, I don't know how that's going to get more stories and seasons. I don't know the character that well, but you got David Tennant coming, so hopefully it'll be good. But Daredevil is the one of all the characters they announced they could do 10 seasons worth.
Oh, easily. And never have to repeat anything.
Yeah. And they don't even need, I mean, Wilson Fisk, yeah, that's his main bad guy, but there are plenty of Daredevil bad guys. He has no shortage. You've got the Hand, who they've already kind of sort of mentioned. And again, you've got Elektra, Bullseye, who I think they did a little something to, I saw, but I missed what it was. But there was a Bullseye nod in there somewhere. So there's a lot to be done with Daredevil. So that was, TV is so good.
Yeah,
and that's just the comic book shit that we talked about. Yeah. We didn't even talk about shit like The Blacklist or Elementary or any of these other shows that we watch. And now we got the summer, and the only thing that I'm going to be doing is watching season 6 and on of Supernatural and American Ninja Warrior.
Yep.
So
we still get 6 more episodes. Game of Thrones.
I thought we were down to 4.
12. Right?
I don't know, but
I don't know
it's
either.
ending soon.
Yeah, there's not enough.
Either way, it won't be enough, and at some point they'll take a 2-week break because they're bastards. So that's it. That was a long Crystal Street thoughts from Crystal Street, but we hope that y'all sat through it and enjoyed it. Oh, but wait, hold on, I almost forgot. We're not done yet. So end of June, we're at the end of May right now. So in the month, we're gonna be at PopCon. We've mentioned that before, but guess what? We got for you today. We got merch.
So we'll start out with I don't know how to.
Let's.
Yeah, we're just gonna
look a little
these.
bit. So yeah, here.
Yeah,
I'll go a little bit closer here. So these are buttons that we will have available at PopCon. We'll be selling them for $2 a piece. Very limited quantities on all of them. But here you can see that we think this site is indeed the tit bone.
It is one of our few catchphrases that we invented, and now we're just trying to make it a thing.
So tit bone, use it. It's a way of saying awesome or excellent. You can say that something is the tit bone. Or use it however you want. Just make tit bone part of the American vernacular. We want to be in Webster's one day is kind of the goal. So we're going to have our Daniel's charity drive of booze for bums. We have just the logo button, which is me and Tannen looking all cool and serious in black and white, and we got a big old CSC logo, which, by the way, there is a CSC business in Indiana. It's like a security business or something like that.
Oh, so the goal is just to make more money than them and buy them out.
Right, we're going to buy that name eventually, WWF style right there. And then me and Tan have always had a love for this strip of, let's see if I can get the glare. There's Ghost Rider riding the tricycle.
Yeah, we will probably end up, because this is one of our favorite images, just the whole strip of Ghost Rider riding things that he shouldn't. So we will probably end up having a next run of him on the big wheel, and then perhaps him on your mom.
So if you are coming to PopCon, and we hope that you are, and you stop by the booth and see us, we're going to have these buttons. We're trying to get some other merch worked out. We won't have shirts. I'm going to officially announce that right now. I went and priced them, and they were a little more than when I had priced them before, so we're going to have to revisit shirts at a later date. But we'll be there. Zan and Steph will be there, so you come get pictures with them. They'll have their Crystal Street merch on, and you can get pictures with the Crystal Street girls and buy buttons and take our business card and follow us on Twitters and Facebooks and all that kind of stuff. So again, PopCon, I can't wait. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So that is it for this week and our thoughts from Crystal Street. I am Graham.
And I'm Tana.
And we'll see you next time.